The day the Whitaker house remembered how to breathe. It started with a sound nobody had heard there in months, laughter big and careless and echoing off the marble. Cole stood in the doorway, like a man staring at a ghost, barefoot, collar loose, knuckles pale on the molding. I was on all fours in the living room, a robe belt in Finn's hand like a reins, Leo bouncing on my back while I neighed around the rug, and thought to myself I was hired to clean this place, not to be a horse, but if this is what brings those boys back to life, then saddle up. The room went still when I finally looked up and saw him, my cheeks, hot hair falling from my bun, both boys frozen like they'd been caught stealing sunshine. I braced for a lecture about boundaries, about professionalism, about appearances, you know what I mean. But Cole's jaw loosened, the smallest nod flickered, and Finn tugged my sleeve like a stage whisper again, please. I crawled until my knees burned, because sometimes the only medicine you've got is ridiculous and loud and exactly what someone needs. The next morning I sliced strawberries while Cole pretended to read emails behind a coffee cup. He wasn't drinking, glancing up every few seconds like he was learning a new language. The twins drifted in with bed hair and mismatched socks. Finn asked if we could read the book about the bear and the moon. After dinner, Leo said he was drawing me a picture, and then hid behind my apron, like a little barnacle. And I watched something crack open inside their father's chest, without a single thank you needing to be said. All day I kept the rhythm simple. When Finn scraped his knee on the stairs, I pressed my hand to his leg and breathed with him when Leo wanted to throw a puzzle. I sat on the floor and waited for his storm to pass, and we built it together, no speeches, no performance, just presence. That night I read the bedtime story from the doorway. Because I wasn't sure if I was allowed to sit, my voice did. The silly voices. The twins giggled at parts that weren't funny. And in the dim light, I saw Cole standing where the hall bends, listening and pretending not to. And when I whispered good night, he said, "Good night, Riley," like my name belonged in that house, and maybe it did. Around 2 a.m., the house cracked open with a scream, "Mommy," the kind that claws your ribs, and I was in the hallway before my brain caught up, Finn, shaking barefoot with a stuffed rabbit strangled in his fist. So I dropped to my knees and pulled him in and hummed a storm song my grandmother used to hum when the lights went out. Cole rushed up, hair a mess, eyes wild, stopped when he saw us, and came down to the floor like gravity changed. "Is he okay?" His voice gravel. "Just scared," I said. Nightmares can be loud, and Finn's sobs turned to hiccups on my shoulder. "He called for Isabel," Cole said, like the truth was a stone in his mouth, and I didn't reach for a platitude or a fix, just the only sentence that has ever helped any parent at 2 in the morning. They don't need you to be strong tonight. They need you to be here. We sat there, 3 people breathing in the same rhythm, until the nightmare let go, and in that quiet he said thank you without moving his lips. Families leave clues if you're paying attention. Leo draws and forgets half his letters. Finn loves the smell of cinnamon and hates raisins with the passion of a senator. Cole loosens his tie with his left hand and glances over your shoulder like he's waiting for a door that won't open anymore. That afternoon, Leo wrote one word in purple crayon, not a picture, just a name. Juniper. And when I asked who that was, he said it was Mom's stuffed bunny. She told me before the sky took her, then handed me the page like a relic. I folded it clean and left it on Cole's desk, because some messages need to find you without a witness. And later in the garden, I found him on the bench with that paper wrinkled in his fist, breath hitching like he'd swallowed broken glass. I didn't give a speech. I opened his hand flattened. The page sat beside him and stayed. And when he whispered, "How did I forget?" I told him the truest, weirdest comfort I know. Because forgetting is how some people survive. And we watched the bay throw silver at the rocks until his shoulders dropped. That's how trust sounds. Not fireworks, just 2 people breathing, where it used to be hard to breathe. Then the storm moved from private to public, because it always does. Cole's mother-in-law, Catherine, arrived in pearls that looked like armor and eyes that inventoried me before I'd even said hello. Finn wrapped his arms around my waist in front of her, and I felt the temperature drop 5 degrees without the thermostat moving. And later I heard Catherine in the sitting room say appearances matter, and people are watching the neighbors, the staff, the papers, like shame was a virtue. 2 days later, a tabloid headline landed on the kitchen counter with my face, and Leo's dandelion smile twisted into a story we didn't write. The Maid and the Mogul, cute, if you're mean, and yeah, that happened. I pulled a suitcase out from under my bed, stared at the zipper, and thought maybe I could make it easier on them by disappearing before anyone asked me to. Then I remembered Finn's breath evening out in my arms, and Leo whispering about the bear and the moon, and I shoved the suitcase back where it belonged, because I know what running feels like, and I also know what staying costs. The school left a voicemail saying they were postponing the twins' start until further notice due to recent attention, and I carried that sentence into dinner like a plate I didn't want to drop. It's because of me, I said. Because I smiled at your kid, and someone printed it, and Cole's jaw locked, but his voice didn't shake, no. The next afternoon, he sat on a live broadcast with a tie that wouldn't behave, and eyes that didn't blink when the anchor asked if my relationship with his children was inappropriate. And he said, Riley Monroe saved my sons when I could barely stand. She got them laughing. If the world thinks that's scandalous, then maybe the world forgot what love looks like. My phone lit up with messages from teachers, single dads, a grandmother who said helpers are holy, and the school called to apologize 7 days later. But the apology wasn't the point, the standing up was. A week after that, the twins found a small pink notebook with peeling butterfly stickers in the library, and I knew it before they opened it. Lola's, my daughter's. And Leo tapped a stick figure drawing and said, "This looks like you holding a little hand. Did you lose your mommy too?" And I swallowed and said, "Not like you. I was the mommy." I told them her name, how she made up ridiculous songs that never rhymed, how the fever didn't break. And I handed them the truth with a handrail. Because children can hold more than we think when we don't make them carry it alone. Cole hovered in the doorway, walked in slow, sat on the floor without creaking the boards. And when I said she liked chocolate chip pancakes, "Only if there was more chocolate than pancake," Finn said, like me, and I kissed his hair. "She would be proud of you," Cole said, simple as a clean window, and something inside me shifted from locked to lit. On the anniversary of Isabel's accident, I took the boys to the garden. We cut hydrangeas and lavender and arranged a mess of color beneath her portrait. And when Cole turned the corner and saw it, he sank to his knees without worrying what anyone might call it. I started to step back, and he said, "Don't go," and reached for my hand. "You should be here." And the four of us stood there inside grief that wasn't a wall anymore. It was a room with windows. Then came the letter in a cream envelope with a small pair of wings in the corner. Sunrise Reach Children's Center, Nashville. The dream I applied to when I thought the only way forward was a way director of residential care, build the thing you wish had existed for you. I hid it in a drawer because sometimes the right thing shows up at the wrong time. Cole found out before I told him. "You got an offer," he said gently at the table after bedtime. "It's a good one." It sounds like you and I stared at the wood grain and said, "I thought it did, and now I don't know, because staying would mean choosing this. Them. You." He slid a folder across the table. Architectural sketches of the unused south wing notes in his careful hand. "I started this weeks ago, not because of Nashville, because I watched what you do and thought, why not build it here in Isabel's name and Lola's? And my hands shook because he said my daughter's name like it belonged with their families' names. And the lines on that paper turned into rooms I could see. Play spaces with sun, quiet corners for hard nights, a garden where little hands could plant something and watch it live. The choice wasn't stay or go, it was escape or become. A few afternoons later, he sat beside me on the garden bench, the bay throwing light, like coins, and handed me another envelope. Open it, his voice steady, and inside was a petition for joint guardianship, because the boys had asked if I could be their mom, and I didn't sob like a movie. I cried the way relief sounds when a wound finally knits. You don't have to decide now, he said, but they sleep because of you, they laugh because of you. And then the boys barreled into us and Leo asked, "Did you tell her?" And Finn whispered, "Does this mean we can call you Mom?" And I said, "If that's what you want," and their heads bobbed like bobbleheads, and the house felt less like a museum and more like a home. It should end there. Neat bow roll credits, but we live in a town with a council and permits and cameras. So the hearing is next week. Catherine plans to speak her mind. The tabloid will probably park outside because compassion doesn't get clicks. Half the comments call it grace and half call it inappropriate. And somewhere in the middle we keep building. Tell me where you draw the line. Should a woman like me have kept to the laundry room and never crawled on a rug to make two boys laugh? Should a CEO have protected his reputation instead of his children? Is Catherine defending her daughter's memory or punishing the living? Have you seen a town stall? A good thing, because the messenger didn't look like the invitation they expected. Drop your take in the comments and don't hold back. What's right here? What's wrong? What double standards are you spotting? And if this story hit you where you breathe, tap like hit subscribe and tell somebody who needs it that sometimes the bravest thing we do is stay in the dark together until the laughter comes back.